Hello, high tier players. I hope you had a good holidays and have a happy New Year's, as this is going up on New Year's Eve. Today, we're taking a look at the brand new roadmap for January 2026 for Where Winds Meet. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a weird one because I'm actually releasing this video before my full review of the game, which is, of course, very in-depth and therefore kind of lengthy. So, because this is time-sensitive information and we're finally hitting a very crucial time that I discuss in that bigger review video, which will come out later this week, it's very important that I got this video out faster so people can plan their resources in this crucial timing. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, China just had its anniversary event and roadmap peak with all of the new weapons for martial arts paths, the new regions to explore, along with a ton of story and progression content, and the new cosmetics, and everyone is clamoring about when we're going to potentially see some of this in the global version. Well, I had several potential timelines that NetEase would potentially follow based on what other Chinese developers have done with these types of games, and also based on my own industry expertise from designing and heading the management and direction of these exact types of projects games myself. I was hesitant to release anything until we got sufficiently far enough along in their catch-up timeline to tell which direction they would go with, but now that we've just gotten word, we know where they are. So the first thing we notice is that there's only one breakthrough for the entire month. My understanding is that Gear Level 71 will release in much the same way that Gear Level 61 did. So that implies that we're going to spend this entire month at level 75 for a cap. Now, while this is less levels than the month of December gave us, which was 10, we will have access to up to the legendary quality gear right from the start of the tier. 61 didn't do that. Remember, the first half of it was it capped us at purple, and then the second half of December, we were finally able to start farming the legendaries. That's not the case here. As soon as 10 hits, even though we're capped at 75, we don't have to wait for Breakthrough 11, which goes up to 80, for us to start farming the legendary gear. It also gives us access to this extra new resource, which eliminates the RNG for the attunement attributes. So when we're tuning everything up and you get a lot of duds and, irrelevant stats for damage types you don't even have, don't worry about that. That will all go away. This means that it's finally the time to consider using those energy pills that we've been saving up, because we'll be having, again, 2 entire months, if not slightly longer, at this gear tier. It's worth investing finally. So we should finally get access to a new material, helping us to get absolute best in slot rolled stats. Add on to that we're using all of our energy, and you should be able to farm up that perfect set right, within the first week or so. Maybe even within the first day if you're lucky. Now that we have expertly analyzed their long-term strategy and potential outcomes, let's take a look at what specifically each item means with the best information that we have available. First, of course, we notice the breakthrough and the related heroes realm. It doesn't mention the sword trial on here, but it can be pretty safely assumed that that's going to be on there as well, since the game client shows that as level 71 when it unlocks. Here, we will refight the New Year's Lion with probably some slight modifications to mechanics from the last fight, exactly the same thing as what happened with the Sleeping Taoist and the Murongrong fights. And then as the new Ghost Master boss shows up, we'll probably see some new mechanics there that we have to perform. I'm actually curious to see how Pugs are going to handle that one. Next, we have the month's story release with the Kaifang campaign and legacy quests, as well as the world boss Nameless General. Now, I've been warned by my Chinese player friends that this one was considered the new big high difficulty tier fight when it came out for them, similar to what we think of when we're talking about Wolf Maiden right now. So it will probably be pretty high up the difficulty tiers. That's for us challenge enthusiasts. That's going to be a big one for us. Next, we'll see the Jianghu Martial Games, which will consist of a minigame similar to how the modified Ma Diao cards event we have going on right now is. Next, we'll see the Mist Vale Prison Puzzle Cave. Now, this one I'm told is actually different from the Divinecraft puzzle cave that we currently have access to in that region. I really got confused when I saw this because I swore I'd already completed that, and then when I talked to the Chinese players, they said it's a different one that they're going to add. No idea what that actually is going to entail. They weren't very specific. So I'm guessing maybe something similar to the Divinecraft. Maybe it's something that actually refreshes or randomizes. I don't know. We'll see. We will also see the Guild Battle Preseason. Now, for those that don't know, this is one of the many modes China has that we just don't yet. While on paper, this excites me a whole lot. The reality is, unfortunately, I've experienced this game's multiplayer already, and this brings me a lot more concerns than anticipation. The multiplayer interactions on this game are best described as horribly laggy. Yeah, It's to the point where it's downright unplayable for the vast majority of people. All you have to do is spend a little bit of online time taking a look at the feedback for PvP. It's a widespread and very noticeable error. Same thing with streamers. You'll see this on their streams a whole lot. Disconnects, server jumps, people teleporting all over the places. You die into animations you couldn't even see. This is a serious issue. And this is extremely noticeable. And again, downright unplayable for almost everyone. And this is in one-on-one arena settings. So a 30-on-30 setting, I'm going to be honest, this actually sounds really terrible right now. If they haven't done some very serious fixes for latency and overall multiplayer stability or quality at this point, I just can't see this as being a good release. It's going to be dogged to hell. For reference, China's player base also has a serious latency and lag problem, and they've been very upset at its bad quality in their version for over a year now, especially with how much money they've given the developers. And there's been no progress, absolutely zero progress at all towards any significant improvement on theirs. So that means our version, we've probably got even worse odds than they have of getting anything fixed. So that's a little unfortunate. That's probably going to be a little bit more of a headache than anything else. Hopefully they get it figured out, though, because that just sounds so fun on paper. I really would like to try that out, if the game will let us play it, of course. Next, we have an incorrectly labeled release of the 9 Mortal Ways base, which was a region just released in China's last patch, actually. So they're clearly picking and choosing from these different patches that they've had over the last year in China. We don't have a clear-cut path necessarily forward to predict all of this, but we can put a general gist out there based on what we've seen, because they are about 80 to 90% in this one timeline and about 10% in this other, which we see this one exception for the 10% here in the 9 Mortal Ways base. So this is clearly not week 3, but it's the start of week 4. This also is not a large region full of content, however. A lot of people are trying to act like, it's like adding Kaifeng. It is not. It is nowhere close to that. People need to taper their expectations. It still is going to have content. It's still going to have, some stuff for you to do, but it's not going to quite be the same even as like the 1/3 region release we had for Kaifeng Part 2 in terms of size. So people, again, they got to taper their expectations for this one. I know a lot of people are going to think it's a whole big region and then try to criticize the game on the back end when it doesn't end up being that. Finally, we have 3 releases, 2 of which are incorrectly labeled as week 4, I just noticed, when it's actually the final days of January, so technically week 5. The story release itself, self-explanatory. The Year of Abundance release. This is a short event. And they label it as an event, but really it's pretty much another short story release. So it also is self-explanatory. It'll be pretty quick, little one and done thing, little nice little tidbit to add to the story. The Season End Dash event, I believe this will be the second part of the mid-season sprint event for PvP that we just finished up. It'll have similar rewards and structure, trying to encourage people to get that last rank, get a couple of matches in before the end of the season. Now, that's all for January. This month, I'm sorry to say, is going to be particularly boring for solo enjoyers, and I do think that we are going to see a pretty large drop in the player base for this month. That being said, do not let the doomers convince you, oh, the game is over, it's gonna die. These games survive mostly on their domestic player base and version, and the Chinese version is swimming in success and money over there. Okay, there's no question that we're gonna have stability on this game. The question is whether or not how many of us are gonna be sticking around for the long-term progression path that this game has set itself on. So I personally hope that this is not indicative of their schedule for the future, because this new pace does mean 2 months for a major release, while China's version waits 3. Someone else actually from the Chinese version already pointed out, if we're to take all of January into stride, which basically tells us all the way up until Season 2, we have the first quarter. We have November 14th to pretty much the middle of February now. We can see exactly what they're planning. That means that our regions are actually line in step. They're 3 months exactly the same quarterly releases as China's version. So according to what I'm seeing here, we're not actually catching up unless they switch things up in like February, March, April, etc., and they suddenly increase the pace again, which I don't think that makes sense for the level caps, but maybe for like the game modes or something. Maybe they can get some of the quality of life stuff to us a little sooner. I don't actually know what's going on their end when it comes to the order that they've decided to do this in, but it certainly seems like, from my experience as a developer, that they could have done some of the quality of life stuff and some of the new game modes, especially the PvP modes, release them a little earlier than expected, because if they don't do that, most of the players on this game, as I told you, I've learned they're all solo players. That means that this month is very bare bones for them, and without them, unfortunately, the larger player base disappears with them. It'll just be kind of us guild people and whales left over playing with each other. So don't let the shill channels lie to you that this update is way bigger than you think, or some other crappy clickbait title where they only tell you a whole bunch of tutorial stuff or stuff that you should have basically learned already in the game for simple systems. We are high tier players and we don't fall for that low level trash play. The update is smaller and it does contain less after you farm up that new tier of gear. There's not exactly going to be a ton of stuff that you can do with it just yet if you don't have at least a somewhat active guild like I do. Now, I'll be back for future videos on this game covering how to beat some of the challenges this game offers as soon as we start hitting some of those higher difficulty tiers that I'm seeing we're finally starting to get into what the Chinese had started to consider endgame. So right now, it doesn't really seem like there's all that much, honestly, that requires explaining. Everyone I've met is able to breeze through everything really effortlessly on day one, Hero Realms included. So maybe the next breakthrough will change that. We'll have to see. The Chinese player base has been telling me that we're getting close to what they consider the true difficulty times. And, oh, wait, just wait till they get to this part. They're getting to those moments. So I'm sure they're sitting with popcorn ready. So until next time, stay on that high tier, players. The view from up here is always worth it.